Alright, let's wrap up these 3 new vocal takes. I moved the camera slightly a little bit down. I hope I didn't chop off my head. I'm not 100% sure if I'm gonna record the acoustic today. I might leave that for tomorrow, for Sunday. But let's get this studio version for Boiler done. So of the 3, right, this one is probably the most comfortable for me, and because it's more of a singing song. It's more in the sort of my pocket, my sort of where I'm sort of more comfortable. Corey Taylor's voice is a little more in sort of the character of his voice. It has some similar aspects to mine, and the register that the song's in really helps my voice breathe well. But at the same time, like we mentioned, we are challenging ourselves in this slong, to really push ourselves octavely. So starting very low and then progressing up to really create that natural sort of build and tension in the song, right? And also it is a bit of a nod to, you don't need to bother, right? And as we progress, right, the sort of, you need to bother becomes, more intensified, right? So let's play the piece and do the performance, and then we can sort of go from there. Okay. Wish I was too dead to cry myself a fiction face, stones to throw in my creator, massacre to which I cater. You don't need to bother, and I don't need to be here. I just keep slipping further. Once I hold on, I won't let go till it bleeds. Wish I was the dead to care, if indeed I cared at all. Never had a voice to protest, so you fed me shit to digest. I wish I had a reason. My flows are open season for this to give a try. What good to sense my dying you. I don't need to bother, and I don't need to be. I'll just keep slipping further. But once I hold on, I won't let go till it bleeds. Wish I died instead of lived. A zombie hearts of face, shell forgotten with its memories, and diaries left with cryptic entries. You don't need a bother, oh, I don't need to be. I'll just keep slipping further. But once I hold on, I won't let go till it bleeds. I keep slipping further. Once I hold on, never let down my mercy. Yeah, so it's a bit of a sort of quirky sort of rendition of the piece, but again, it's this element of, we talked about this sort of hey, right? So okay, it's a bit of a funk, yeah, we'll get a bit of dance, but then it's quite a dark the songs about depression, and it's just a darker tone on things, right? But then like, you don't need a bother, you don't need to be, yeah. I'll just keep slipping further, right? Even then, I'll just keep slipping further, never let down my sea. You don't need to bother, right? Perhaps the piece isn't just all about depression, but I could definitely consider, perhaps that wasn't his frame of mind, but I could definitely one perspective we could take and consider is that an element could be depression, right? Or you don't need to bother. Elements of society in there. There's many different interpretations we can take of the piece. Corey Taylor, in his version, and his perspective on the piece and what it means for him is different to what it means to me, in the way I've interpreted the piece of music. Your interpretation might be different. Just because the artist has just said that this song is about this, we can interpret it in a different light. And some of the words, from me and my perspective, hone into sort of that, you don't need to bother. It's almost like you're almost talking to yourself in some ways. You don't need to bother, I don't need to be, I'll just keep slipping further, right? Fall into sort of abyss, like, you don't need to bother, it's so you can get quite dark, right? Or it's almost therapeutic, right? You see how sort of the mood just changed, right? It just became very dark, right? And a way to sort of, create a bit of a sort of unusual characteristic is there was sort of strap vibe in there, right? And some other elements. And it adds a bit more of a funkier sort of, right? It almost plays with song, right? It's like, that sort of, voice in your head that's sort of dancing. It's like, you don't need to bother, like, and it's sort of, again, that sort of, hey, yeah, it's a very dark song, but I'm dancing anyway, and that's sort of to what I'm going for. It's a different, it's a different perspective on things. But again, it's just what I mentioned in the sort of lucid dreams, and without me, adding elements of satire into the piece of music and a bit of a sort of contrast, right? And if everyone's wearing white, you wear purple, okay? And it's adding a bit of dark humor, if you will, to things. But that's a form of art. And just expanding what we can do and creating different contrasts and perspectives and dimensionality into music. Something I talk quite a lot about it in the art of mixing, right? But overall, in terms of the musical content, I'm really happy with how the song's progressing, particularly starting with lower range, and then building up and adding some of those higher pitch sort of come on, that's sort of jolts. I really enjoy that, because that's a bit of just what was that, like, all of a sudden you get into the piece, and it's a bit more of a sort of boom 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 boom, like a sort of Billie Jean sort of thing going on. Which I like, right? So a bit of nod to that, as because Michael Jackson has inspired almost every single artist you could possibly think of. One of the most influential, if not the most influential, pop artist. So it's important to show respect to that, and Quincy Jones and may rest in peace. But all that stuff, it has a huge impact on modern artists, and especially now into particularly with some directions that people take with music these days. It's like, okay, maybe we need to go and take a listen back to what Quincy Quincy did. You know. Oh my god, what's the album? Quincy Jones made this beautiful album, it's a solo album of his. I know Karina, and I'm the only one, I know Karina. Yeah, so check it out, great song. I know Karina, something like that. It's a great album, beautiful production, engineering, rocking. Should definitely check it out. Definitely a highlight in his beautiful list of music. But anyway, thank you so much for joining me for this, and I hope I gave you a bit more insight into how we're developing the song and the perspectives we're taking on this piece. All right. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll catch you for the next practice takes. All right. Okay, I'll see you then. Enjoy.